You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Packed show tonight. News from top to bottom. A couple of big interviews we're bringing in. Rob Bluey, Victor Davis Hanson. So I'm going to get right to the news. We are 14 months away from the midterms. You might say, Tony, that is an arbitrary number. Why do you care that we are 14 months away from anything? Well, 14 months is really about the average length of a Congress campaign, a congressional campaign for the House or the Senate. They really get into serious mode at 14 months. That's about the cutoff that people decide whether or not the serious campaigns. The incumbents decide whether they're going to retire. All of those retiring announcements have likely been made, barring, finding out that, you took gold bars from Egypt, or you got drunk and your husband smacked a guy with a hammer. There's a lot of various things that could derail a particular congressional campaign, but you make all those decisions about 14 months out. By now, in every first year of an administration, the opposition has solidified. We've gotten through the point that I have been telling you guys about for months. Before the Trump administration, he has the first 6-7 months of his term to really get through some of the biggest stuff, or at least get the ball rolling. After that, we get into campaign season. So 14 months out, have the Democrats solidified as an opposition party to bring together something? No, not at all. And we're going to talk with Victor Davis Hanson a little bit later about some of these things. But we're going to start off with a new statement from Hakeem Jeffries. I know you haven't heard anything from Captain James Tiberius Kirk of the House of Representatives. Well, he is finally out in front of the American public again at the end of this August recess with a statement of condemnation. What is he condemning, you may ask? Well, he's very upset that Trump has announced he is firing Lisa Cook as governor of on the board of the Federal Reserve. He's very, very upset about this. Why? Is it because he thinks that the Federal Reserve ought to remain independent from the President of the United States? Is it because he thinks Trump is just firing too many people in general? Is it because he thinks that right now Trump's economy may be too shaky to be making moves at that kind of a level? Nope. He's mad because Lisa Cook is black. So here we go. The new bold strategy for the Democrats. We're going to start off with Trump's a racist. Yeah, that's worked before. From Hakeem Jeffries' quote, Dr. Lisa Cook is the first black woman ever to serve on the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. Donald Trump is trying to remove her without a shred of credible evidence that she has done anything wrong. Okay, this is just incorrect. Even if you think that Donald Trump should not have removed Lisa Cook as one of the governors on this board for the Federal Reserve, there is in fact evidence that she has done things wrong. Mortgage fraud, as I've said before, it's bewildering to me that there are people who would commit mortgage fraud who are high-profile individuals. There are some crimes that you can get with a lot easier if you are kind of a middling person in society. There are some crimes you can get away with if you are a wealthier, more elite member of society. But there is one thing, if you are a big member of society, you really cannot get away with: mortgage fraud, in which Lisa Cook openly, blatantly, in a span of a couple of weeks, listed that she had 2 different primary addresses in totally different states in order to secure lower mortgage rates. That is blatant mortgage fraud. It has been revealed. And so Trump, again, maybe for financial reasons, maybe for other reasons, he said, you should step down. She didn't. And so he said, you're fired. Hakeem Jeffries has decided to make this about the fact that Lisa Cook is black. Ah, yes. Now he's got him. He continues, to the extent anyone is unfit to serve in a position of responsibility because of deceitful and potentially criminal conduct, it is the current occupant of the White House. The American people are not buying your phony projection and slander of a distinguished public servant. Always with the distinguished. Okay, a couple of things. According to every piece of available polling data, as well as the cultural shift of Americans, the trust in institutions, the hallowed respect for civil public servants, does not exist. It does not. The number of individuals applying for basic bureaucratic positions in the federal government and applying for basic county level positions, which is essentially a gauge of how well Americans trust various institutions are at record lows per capita. So additionally, just to, make this rather, emphatic, the idea that Hakeem Jeffries is going to nail Trump to the wall on being a racist, when Trump just announced that he was going to let in 600,000 Chinese students. Remember, Hakeem Jeffries is one of the guys saying Trump was xenophobic and super racist against Asians. Now Trump is going against a lot of the base. And by the way, I would say a mistake, unless this is a particular leverage point, with Chinese students into the country. Of course, the president of the United States as well has made a lot of initiatives on like criminal justice reform that have been considered kind of olive branches to specific communities based on race in particular ways. This ain't gonna fly. But Hakeem Jeffries isn't really just mad about Lisa Cook. You know this. He's really angry and just wants to try to nail Trump to the board with the racist thing. You've heard it before. Here you go.
Something that President Trump is doing here in Washington, which is he's launched a review of the Smithsonian museums because he says, quote, everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was. You're the highest ranking African-American in the U.S. government.
Love that Dana Bash is like, yeah, you're black. We thought we'd bring you on to complain about it. Again, the insulting that Democrats constantly do, no matter if you're in legacy media, no matter if you're in Congress, to black and Hispanic people. If it's black, well, you're the best token that we could find. You're the highest ranking person that would agree to come on Sunday's State of the Union. Or if it's a Hispanic person, they either call them Latinx or brown. So Hakeem, I would at least hope on the inside he grimaces a smidgen. But instead, he decided that, well, this isn't about Lisa Cook. It's just racism in general.
What do you think?
There is no good aspect of slavery. And so Donald Trump is once again behaving like a racial arsonist. And it's extraordinary that he would make such a historically ignorant statement. The Smithsonian should continue to hold the line.
Yeah, the Smithsonian should continue to suggest that being on time for things is an aspect of white supremacy. Best of luck to him. The rest of the Democrat Party is struggling under similar problems. Mamdani is, as he is making more enemies on not just the Republican side of the aisle, but the corporate Democrat wing of the party, the Schumers, the Hakeem Jeffries to a degree. Now they're starting to turn out some really unfriendly stuff to him as well. So Mamdani's a little more muted when he's not struggling to lift 135 pounds on the bench. So that brings us over to AOC and Bernie Sanders. They are suffering a totally different kind of defeat at the moment because, as you will recall, the entire wing of the Democrat Party that was based around the youth and the socialism and the fear-mongering that we were all going to die at the hands of capitalism did so through the means of climate change. You will recall we were all going to be dead by now. Greta Thunberg presented we were going to be dead several years ago. Al Gore predicted that Waterworld would be a documentary by like 2008. That was when he wasn't inventing the internet. We've been through this whole thing. Now a new clip of Bernie Sanders is resurfacing from 7 or 8 years ago, in which he argued something that doesn't really hold up water, no pun intended, 7 or 8 years later.
But the scientists are telling us that we don't get our act together within the next 8 or 9 years. We're talking about cities all over the world, major cities going underwater. We're talking about increased drought, talking about increased extreme weather disturbances. The United Nations is telling us that in the years to come, there are going to be hundreds of millions of climate refugees.
Okay, and now we're here 7 or 8 years past that. This is in like 2015, 2016. He was promising gloom and doom and terror. Oh, we were all going to die. Oh, we're all going to be underwater. It is 2025. The sea levels have not, in fact, gone up. They haven't. Additionally, though China and India have been vastly multiplying their coal, nasty fumes of all kinds of destructive, toxic garbage, the globe has not turned into a boiling pimple to be popped. Nor have we actually seen an exfil from particular regions because of climate migration, though they've really, really tried to nail this home. In the meantime, what is Bernie Sanders doing? He's taking private jets, more private jets, that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a week in upkeep and flights to spread his emissions around the country like Taylor Swift, while in one hand talking about climate change that never seems to get here, and in the other hand, suggesting that we're all going to die from the billionaires. They're coming. They're going to get us all with the billion and the climate change and the pudding is terrible. We're going to send the radio crew over to commercial. Live stream crew will stay on because we got to get Politico, involved. It's the Tony Kinnett cast. Now, Politico reports that Sanders is also taking flack from the inside of the party. Why is Sanders, the socialist, taking flack from the inside of the party? Because, according to Politico, quote, an avowed democratic socialist, Sanders, whose policies are largely viewed as toxic by the investment world, that includes the corporate Democrats. Remember, Nancy Pelosi is the biggest investor du jour of NVIDIA, for example. So Bernie Sanders praised Trump's designs for Intel. Bernie Sanders praised the Trump administration getting 10% of the stock in Intel. He says, quote, if microchip companies make a profit from the generous grants they receive from the federal government, the taxpayers of America have a right to reasonable return on that investment and deodorant and to look at pictures of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I may have added the last two things. The Vermont senator said in a statement to Politico. So now you have Sanders taking flack from other wings of the party for praising Trump's very populist interventionist move on Intel, which we'll also talk about later. Then you have Representative Tim McBride, who runs around in a skirt and calls himself Sarah. I have no comment on the rumor that this is the guy that Nancy Pelosi's husband smacked with a hammer. That's why he's acting like this. No comment at all whatsoever. But Tim McBride, who goes by Sarah, from Delaware, he's claiming that the trans community needs to be a little nicer and not as toxic, which I thought was one of the qualifiers to be a part of the trans community or whatever. But, you know, hey, I will say this. The cost of saying maybe we shouldn't be horrible people has now caused a blue sky social media scorn suggesting that Tim McBride, the only trans member of the House, if you don't count Chuck Schumer, well, he's in the Senate, so, we'll moving right along here, that he is going to sell out the rest of the trans people. He's going to sell them all down the river, oh boy, as one member of the trans community put it. Additionally, because of, we really enjoy shenanigans over on the Winsome Sears side of things in Virginia. In her campaign to follow after Governor Glenn Youngkin, the Democrats in Virginia have decided to put up a couple of signs saying that if transgender people can't use the same bathroom as members of the opposite biological sex, then maybe they don't want black people like Winsome using their restroom. Of course, it's a bunch of old white liberal ladies that have been seen. Not just one of these signs, but there are several of these signs that have been seen in Virginia. Now, there's only one of them that we know of that was carried in all seriousness by one of the Democrat members at the rally. Again, you get out your Sharpies and your, cheap Rose Art markers and you grab a neon green or white poster from your local Walgreens and you head out to protest because you don't have a job. But anywho, the way that the Democrats are currently in a record level of infighting is one of the reasons why they are struggling at the actual DNC meetings to come up with anything of substance to encourage the party. In fact, they're doubling down on all of the DEI stuff, going as far to say, well, diversity, equity, and inclusion, racism and transgenderism, that's the foundation of the Christian church. The Democrats, ladies and gentlemen.
Republican friends and fellow citizens, I say, who profess to be active Christians, I remind them that DEI is the very foundation of the Christian church.
Thank you, Bill Owen, DNC committeeman of Tennessee. Now, I was told growing up, and at least according to, some of the theological books behind me and also that good old Holy Bible, that Jesus Christ is the foundation of the Christian church, given that the word Christian means little Christ. But, what do I know? I too tend to forget the passage in Matthew in which Jesus turned the water into a man in drag reading to little children. So phenomenal stuff over from the left. We've got Rob Bluey over on the line. DC, They're very mad about the inherent racism of National Guardsmen in Washington, D.C. No, really, I mean, there's like a guy yelling about,
we believe that the National Guard and the military occupation is the first step into rounding black people up and putting them in detainment camps here in Washington, D.C. and around the United States of America.
Yeah, so the Democrats are doing just fine, sweetie. So we've got on Rob Bluey. We're going to switch over to him now. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Joining us now is Rob Bluey, my boss's boss over at the Daily Signal, just to be very transparent, and also not stabbed living in Washington, D.C., though he does. Rob, how's it going?
Things are great, Tony. Thank you for everything you do. I just have to say that the community that watches the show on a daily basis is incredible, and we're just so grateful for them at the Daily Signal. So thank you.
You smart. You very smart. We the best.
Yeah, he reads the comments and he tells me when you guys are getting out of hand, so behave. You know, like a lot of people in DC are starting to behave because I'm so good at segues. What's it like? I live in Indiana, and so if there's ever anything different like road construction, which to be fair isn't all that different around here, you get annoyed. It's the subject of conversation. But a drastic change like going from stabbings, murders, carjackings of congressmen and women now to none of that? What in the world is that like?
Sure. It wasn't too long ago that there was a congressional intern who was here over the summer who was killed by a stray bullet. So yes, there are serious consequences to the crime epidemic that we saw in Washington, D.C. President Trump, again, talking about it. It seems like not a day goes by where this is not the issue that's front and center in his mind, probably because he's living here. And he understands that the people who are working in the administration are sometimes putting their lives at risk, commuting to work. And that is something that I've done consistently over the last 2 decades. I took my first job in Washington, D.C. at Human Events as a reporter covering Congress in 2005. I was originally taking the Metro right to Union Station. Now I'm just on the other side, working at the Daily Signal and currently drive, so I don't take the train anymore. But we have a lot of colleagues at the Daily Signal who do and pass through the halls of Union Station. And I was there last week when I went up to New York, and I saw a significantly different presence, shall we say, at Union Station, which is a main thoroughfare in Washington, D.C. And so you've had the National Guard camped out there, as well as some other wards in Washington, D.C. And the overall feeling, Tony, just to sum it up, is one of much greater safety in our nation's capital today than just a couple weeks ago.
And I'm sorry, is again someone outside of the Beltway who gets to come in now a little bit more than I used to. I really do enjoy seeing Union Station. I enjoy seeing the beautiful architecture. I like seeing it clean. I like seeing people travel without being molested by people camped out that aren't the National Guard. But I've seen a lot of photos, Rob, and some of these photos include pictures of the sidearm holsters on National Guardsmen. Actually, I've seen 2 kinds of photos. The other is apparently some National Guardsmen standing outside of a Krispy Kreme this morning. So I don't think the left can decide whether they want to say they're here to take over and ruin the world, or look at these law enforcement officers wanting the donuts. I mean, what are you seeing? Are you scared? Are there guns everywhere now? What's the tale?
Well, certainly I'm not scared. I feel a lot safer, frankly, driving around and walking around the city with the increased presence of law enforcement here. It's interesting that you bring that up, particularly the photos. Axios has a piece today in which they talk about the reaction between the residents of Washington, D.C. and the tourists who are visiting. And you see many of these tourists who are running up to the National Guardsmen and women to get their picture with them or to get a picture next to one of the big vehicles. And so there seems to be, at least from a tourist perspective, a great appreciation, even if the local residents, for whatever reason, don't particularly like their presence here. Now, schools returned to session this week in Washington, D.C., and there was a big hubbub yesterday about, what does this mean for kids, going back and forth to school? And I would think, my goodness, if you're a parent,
Oh no!
Wouldn't you want your kids to be safe getting to school and not?
Oh, but that's not half of it, though. I'm sorry. This bothered me when J.B. Pritzker did this in Illinois. He said, we can't have, National Guardsmen walking around Chicago. I'm like, dude, those are Illinois National Guardsmen would be from the state of Illinois, sure. Right? So you would theoretically have Chicago residents in Chicago. In D.C., again, I know the 74th Troop pulls from a couple of different places, but theoretically, you might have people from Washington, D.C., maybe the older brothers and sisters, maybe the parents of some of these students. I'd prefer to see them there than Iraq and Afghanistan, just saying.
Yeah, and Tony, I mean, I remember being with you at the Republican National Convention last year, obviously walking around. I mean, these are individuals who you, in many cases, you ran into the Indiana National Guard, I think there.
Yeah, I was going to say, it took me forever to shut up about seeing the Indiana State Police for the Indiana National Guard. Yeah, both of them. Yeah, I loved it.
They were so friendly, and I have to say that is generally how I've seen their interactions with people who've approached them. They're not being standoffish or unapproachable at all. They very much want to carry on a conversation or interact with the people.
Or help older ladies down escalators or stairs at the metro, which again, the last time I saw anyone helping anyone at the metro, they may have been shoving someone into the tracks. So I'm got to say, it's kind of nice turn of pace. And I think that Trump forcing the left, and producer Nick and I had this discussion last night regarding the Trump executive order, which no one appears to have read, on the flag burning, no inciting riots by lighting a flag on fire at the protest. That Trump appears to be forcing the left to take the insane position of we hate our troops, we hate the flag, we love crime, or as the lady at the DNC said, crime, don't take the bait, crime doesn't matter. It's wild, but politically wildly effective.
It is, and they're twisting themselves in knots just trying to figure out how they react. I mean,
contortionists eat your heart out.
Yeah, I mean, you've covered Gavin Newsom and his copycat strategy, and other Democrats who, whether it be Tim Walz or others, who just can't seem to figure out what it is they want to say or do. But you're absolutely correct. Trump has a way of picking these issues and putting Democrats in a box where they simply are confused or befuddled in terms of how to respond to some of the questions. At the same time, the news media, the legacy news media, with every single True Social post or executive order, just hyperventilates and goes out of control in terms of their reaction to Trump. And so the combination of those things, I think, has worked very effectively for Trump to stay on offense, which is a hard thing for any president to do when you're constantly being badgered with questions from a hostile press and from your political opponents.
I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you've covered this particular vein of news and analysis for, again, such a long time as you have. Were you expecting that now into the second Trump administration that he would, during the Biden years, it was very easy to say something and get Biden bouncing off like a Roomba and saying whatever crazy stuff the left would then have to defend. I thought, well, if Trump gets into the White House, maybe were you a little, I don't know, not concerned isn't the right word, but were you perhaps curious to see if the left would suddenly pick up a unified message, and then surprised to see them not be able to do so at all and be just as bad as when Biden was in office?
There have been a couple of moments when I feel like they had a little bit of momentum. I mean, most recently, I'd say the Jeffrey Epstein situation was one where it seemed the Democrats were just, it was a weird issue for them to rally around. But I mean, you heard them all talking, basically using the same talking points. But I can think of very few examples where they've been able to do that. They haven't been able to unify, I think probably because there's not a leader. Hakeem Jeffries, as you've pointed out on your show, or Top News in 10, and Chuck Schumer are not kind of the charismatic, effective leaders that the party needs. And so that's part of the problem, is they just they have that leadership gap right now, and nobody has stepped up to fill it. But also, yeah, Trump has done Trump moves so quickly, and I think this is a lesson he's learned from his first term. Remember, the first term, he had all those distractions that were going on, whether it was just organizing the government or the Russia. There were so many things that were, I think, complicating his ability to govern, where he's learned some important lessons that if he's always doing something, and you mentioned the flag burning executive order, the cashless bail executive order yesterday, you never know what you're going to get with Trump at any given day of the week. Today at the cabinet meeting, he was talking about the price of drugs, right? So, there's always a focus of his, and I think that that's kept the Democrats off balance.
And I mean, if you can keep individuals off balance, obviously it makes it easier to effectuate policy. I know we talked about this a lot, and this is kind of the last thing I'll bring up here. When you're playing kind of a zone, you have a team of mavericks essentially coming in and playing all of the cards at the same time. Every front, it's move, it's push, it's go. There's a weird opportunity for media outlets to get a bit lax and lazy on either side of the political aisle. You can, either be a crew that says, rah, 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 everything is wonderful, or you can be the side that says everything is terrible and we're all going to die. And we know how many times we've been told we're all going to die, right? I still remember net neutrality. So at this point, I have to ask, just because I don't write as much as I used to on the Daily Signal side of things, what is it that you are trying to make sure, at least from a journalistic perspective, or maybe from some of our allies in the industry, how do you stay on top of a news cycle like this? Because on the broadcast side, I feel at times as though I'm trying to drink from a fire hose, maybe.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those situations where I feel like you look back at the end of the week and you're like, where did the days go? I mean, the things just happen so quickly these days. And I think that one thing that sets the Daily Signal apart, and I think you are a perfect example of this with your show, is providing that perspective and analysis that so many other media organizations fail to do. And so we know that we have an intelligent audience, and we're trying to bring them the most pertinent and relative, important stories of the day, but also to do so with some perspective about why they're important, why they matter, and how it's affecting them in their daily lives. And so that's what we strive to do at the Daily Signal. And I think as long as we continue to keep doing that, and you keep doing it with the Tony Kinnett Cast, we'll stay ahead of the competition.
I was getting ready to say, the idea that we don't simply question why the National Guard might be a good thing, like the New York Times columnists are currently doing. I can see how that might resonate with the rest of America. I'm hearing you. Rob Bluey, president of the Daily Signal. Always great to have you on. And we'll have you back next week.
Thanks, Tony.
We'll be back in just a second for the radio crew. We got to send you guys over to commercial land. Stay on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now, I do have some big breaking news to deliver to those who are on the live stream crew. The biggest news perhaps ever. Cracker Barrel has caved. Just a couple of minutes ago, Cracker Barrel made social media posts, probably the very last social media posts that you will see with the old logo, well, I should say the new old logo. They said, quote, "We thank our guests for sharing your voices and love for Cracker Barrel. We said we would listen, and we have, after a lot of pushing. Our new logo is going away, and our old timer will remain. At Cracker Barrel," yes, I love this part, "at Cracker Barrel, it has always been," oh, we got the graphic for that, nice, "and always will be about serving up delicious, warm welcomes and the kind of country hospitality that feels like family. As a proud American institution, our 70,000 hardworking employees, not including Brad's wife, look forward to welcoming you to our table soon." Producer Nick, go ahead.
But the one in charge, she told us.
I know, she said that it was super popular. I know.
All the diners and workers.
Like a hyper college educated liberal blonde woman with like the Edna Mode glasses from The Incredible. You're telling me she may not have been telling the truth? I was told the Bud Light campaign, the Target campaign, the Jaguar campaign, the Cracker Barrel campaign, I was told they were all super popular. Oh, wait a minute. It turns out that when you get rid of traditional imagery, especially right now, people are sick of the mealy washed garbage. Like every pundit on TV has said this here. I think we actually do have the old logo as well. People are tired of the gentrified, smoothed down, millennial gray logos. They're tired of it. They want to see the old fonts. They want to see Uncle Herschel, whom founded Cracker Barrel, leaning on the Cracker Barrel. You know, the kind of barrel that used to hold pickles, crackers, biscuits, not the British kind. Again, outside in a barrel so that it wouldn't get all nasty and moldy, and also in a big barrel so that you could reach in on your way in. You would eat the crackers you're walking through the store, and you would get thirsty for things on offer. Yes, Producer Nick.
In the continuous effort to always bring the correct information to our audience, Uncle Herschel is the uncle of the founder.
Uncle of the founder.
Dan Evans.
Thank you. So this is not the first statement that they have put out, by the way. We're supposed to be talking about crime. We're talking about Cracker Barrel. We're going to get this thing settled because it is done. This is the second statement they've put out. On August 25th, that being yesterday, they put out a statement saying, we're changing the logo, but thank you for being upset. We're going to be really inclusive, and our food's not changing. And there's a scene from How I Met Your Mother in which Marshall is mad that Ted's not, or maybe, I think it's Barney, isn't coming up with a good enough deal. And so Marshall has like this Indiana Jones whip, and he's like, whoosh, not good enough. And he screams that over and over. That was the reaction to the first statement. So America, we won. Cracker Barrel has returned. I have blown through that entire break to talk about Cracker Barrel returning. Excellent excitement, good times had by all. I did promise the Democrats are still, in other news, clinging to crime. Crimes like, well, they're not clinging. Even the Democrats came out on social media and said they also hated the Cracker Barrel rebrand. So we found the one thing that unifies the country, other than, again, the woke, liberal, white, college-educated women. But, you know, aside from them, the Democrats are, however, clinging to crime. And they're doing so in a couple of different ways. They're letting Democrat senators across the board come out that aren't crying over the climate change failure like Bernie Sanders or Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. He's upset because his windmills are going away. We're going to talk about some of these brilliant orators and the stupid they're bringing to the midterms in a second. Don't go anywhere. Tony Kinnett Cast.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Hi, I'm Tony Kinnett, and welcome back to Behind Schedule. That's because there was some breaking news during the radio commercial break. Cracker Barrel's caved. Logo's going back, so they've issued a second statement. Hopefully the third statement they issue is firing Woke McGoober, their CEO. In other pressing news, someone allowed Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, who was about as popular as the measles in a lung ward. He has decided to get up on what he thought was a safe show, MSNBC's Morning Joe. Here's the thing about Morning Joe. Every once in a while, Joe Scarborough wakes up with that dog in him. He just decides he's going to cause problems. It isn't always, but just every once in a while, Joe Scarborough wakes up and decides, you know what? There is some Democrat that's going to come onto the show today who's going to act really comfy. And I don't like being everyone's comfort pick. It's like the girl that some guys always go back to. You just get tired of being the comfort food every once in a while. So Joe Scarborough says, well, you know, you don't like Trump maybe suggesting sending the National Guard to Chicago. So would you accept more federal money for police officers? More police maybe? You know, bolster the CPD? I have been inside, by the way, FOPs in Chicago during the DNC riots. If there is a conservative crew out there, it is in fact many officers in the CPD. So, of course, Mayor Brandon Johnson avoids the question like it's a disease for at least a minute. Check it out. This is hilarious. It's like watching the guy dance that pistols are shooting at his feet.
Would you also like to get federal funding to help put 5,000 more cops on the street in Chicago? Would that help drive down crime?
Well, look, policing by itself is not the full strategy.
No, I understand that.
I understand that. Answer the question. More cops in Chicago? Because Johnson just got off a bender yelling that incarceration is racist and it's not going to solve crime.
You've talked about the other things you want, and I said those are good and important programs, but I'm asking also, would 5,000 more police officers on the street in Chicago be helpful to go along with all of those social programs that a lot of cities are engaging in and having success with?
Well, look, here's the best way I can put it, Joe, is that in the 90s when I was in high school, we had 3,000 more police officers and we had 900 people being murdered every single year in Chicago. It's just not policing alone. Of course, we want more detectives.
I know it's not policing alone, but
of course, he continues that for a good while. I love it. Just watch him dance. Senator Jamie Raskin of Maryland, not the margarita sipping with Kilmar Abrego Garcia, senator of Maryland. No, the other one. Jamie Raskin gets in front of the entire country and announces that maybe Democrats shouldn't be fighting crime. After all, it's a part of our nation's history. Jamie Raskin, Democrat senator, go.
And the military is not supposed to be used for ordinary law enforcement purposes. In D.C., he was talking about cleaning up the graffiti and, dealing with the blight of homelessness, which are obviously local, not federal issues. And he's trying to militarize our society, intimidate his political opponents. The whole idea of picking cities based on their partisan leadership is absurd.
Yeah, man, I just look at these Republican-run cities and, oh man, all of the happiness in business is clearly something that demands federal troops and attention right now.
I mean, there are lots of Republican cities and towns struggling with crime.
Show your sources.
Everybody is across the country. Always, crime has always been part of our history.
What? Well, I mean, crime's always been a part of our history, so hey, Producer Nick.
Let's destroy our statues and rewrite our museum's lines, and let's just get rid of all of our cultural history and perspective.
But crime,
that's our history.
Don't you touch crime. That's a line I refuse to cross. And then because you can't have Democrats falling apart. Again, we are at the very beginning of the midterm period. 14 months out is when the midterm races begin. Eric Swalwell, famous for being duped by a Chinese spy and sleeping with her without detecting anything amiss, because I guess, all of the ladies in all the good ladies in your life, they wake up at 2 a.m, get out of bed and phone Beijing. Who doesn't? But Eric Swalwell has forced his staffers to record videos of him again, where they come up to him and go, "Oh, hey, representative," and then he's like, "Oh, I didn't see you there. Hello." Take 27. By the way, if I ever make the horrible life decision to run for Congress, and even more miraculously, I am elected to lead Indiana's 6th Congressional, I promise I will never force first of all, I will hire competent people to be staffers. Number 2, I will not force them to call me Mr. Representative Congressional Man. Eric Swalwell, here you go.
Hey, Congressman.
Hey, man. What's going on? It's been a while.
Yeah. What the fuck is up with Trump threatening to send military to Chicago?
You know what? This guy. Why don't you send the fucking...
Oh, okay. He's going to start swearing. We're not going to be able to share that on the air. Sorry. So Swalwell says in the rest of his video, sorry about that, he says, why don't you send the bleeping military to the grocery stores to lower prices? As that's the dunk. Don't send them to, don't send armed military members to combat the carjackings and the murders. Send them to the grocery stores to lower prices. You got them. No one's ever going to mess with Eric Swalwell is a national treasure. Did you have something?
What is with the 1950s background music?
I am shopping at the Safeway. I love it. It's fantastic. All right, so moving right along. The 7th Trump cabinet meeting occurred today. And I will say there is something people aren't really talking about a whole lot. And this would be primarily that there's a lot of good and there's also some silly stuff that is getting a little bit sillier. Also in the same way, the good is getting a lot gooder, a lot better as we proceed. So again, very, very nice to actually see the inside of cabinet meetings that are recurring and not just being sent out as emails from Jill's office with half of the cabinet members, either off breastfeeding their sons or out with unannounced prostate surgeries, or stealing luggage. So in this particular instance, though, in the Trump administration, I'm not going to go through all the videos because we're a little short on time, but there were a few members of the Trump administration who did spend the update. Trump went around the table, what are the updates? Steve Witkoff in particular basically got down on his knees, like, "Oh, Trump, I'm so happy to be here. Oh, I love you so much. Oh, you're so... Oh, you deserve everything. Here's a car and a camel and also the 7th season of Saturday Night Lights." And it was like, well, dude, just get to the business. Aside from those, which is a little of the silly, it was a really good cabinet meeting. It was also really long. It was like 3 hours. Our Elizabeth Mitchell was over there and got a couple of great questions from Trump. Also, the only White House correspondent to get multiple questions. We'll catch up on some of those on the live stream. Radio crew, we have to send you to commercial before board operator Allison kills me. It's the Tony Kinnett cast. All right, so Trump did begin in a truly excellent way by stating that, it turns out the New York Post and the rest of the media, asking about Russia and Zelensky. Here you go.
This past weekend, Sergei Lavrov was saying that Putin will not sign a peace deal with Zelensky because Russia views him as illegitimate. Just wondering if the Russians have been relaying this to your team, if they view Zelensky, as a leader worth signing a peace deal with, if they will.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, so Trump says it doesn't matter. I want to pause real quick. This is the question every pundit, every former cabinet official, the Obama officials, Susan Rice has gone through menopause 3 times in the last week talking about this particular issue. It's been insane. Is Trump gonna? But he has to be with Putin. He's not. He's a Russian asset. He's gonna back away. Putin's gonna drop everything. Zelensky's gonna drop everything. They're gonna continue the war. Trump's response to this is the reason he was elected. I want you to pay attention. He says it doesn't matter. Here you go.
What they say, Steve can answer, but I can answer too. It doesn't matter what they say. Everybody's posturing. It's all bull. Okay, everybody's posturing. Steve, do you have a different answer?
I agree with you, sir.
And by the way, Trump doesn't really look particularly impressed because that's, again, Steve's job is to just agree and just go around. Again, Steve's done some good work, agreed, but the best part of the entire cabinet meeting was, in fact, Trump just saying, look, people are just posturing on the world stage. Open diplomatic to the media stuff is all lying. Because if you reveal your cards when you are in the middle of a major, this is, by the way, both for Zelensky and Putin. I've received a lot of questions the last couple of days. Putin's starting up the war stuff again when they're supposed to be negotiating. Zelensky's continuing the war, even though, guys, they are in a war. And a ceasefire has not been called. If you are playing a game, you play as hard as you can until the final whistle blows. You don't soften up. No party of it is going to. By the way, Trump shouldn't either. So the question, again, understandable. But to be fair, we have to move on to the next particular thing. A really hilarious moment is from Marco Rubio, because as I suddenly remembered today, had to be reminded, Labor Day is this coming weekend. And no guy works harder than Marco Rubio, who has 4 different jobs in the government.
So Marco, go ahead.
Well, Mr. President, first of all, everyone's made this comment already and needs to be echoed again. You were elected as the president of working Americans, and that's why this Labor Day is so meaningful. For me personally, this is the most meaningful Labor Day of my life as someone with 4 jobs. And so... it's true.
Funny. Again, I will remind you for the 87th time, it is Vance and Rubio in 2028, just to make that particularly clear. Now, we're going to get to the Democrats' incredible selection of choices in a second with VDH. But Elizabeth Mitchell got 2 questions into the president. One was on J.B. Pritzker and the crime situation. Very succinct answer. Very good question, though, of course, at the Daily Signal, we are biased. Here you go.
Governor Pritzker said yesterday that at a press conference that he would encourage nonviolent resistance to the National Guard if they were sent to Chicago. What's your response to that?
He said what?
That he would encourage nonviolent resistance if the National Guard is sent to Chicago.
Look, this guy doesn't know what resistance is or nonviolent resistance is. He's a bad politician. It's amazing. I mean, if he didn't have the money, he wouldn't get any votes because there's no compelling reason to vote for him. Guys.
Classic Trump. All right, we're going to shift over Victor Davis Hanson. Great conversation coming up for you. Don't go anywhere. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
With all of the burning fires, chaos, and shenanigans, and of course, I'm only talking about Minneapolis with the DNC right now, we have to go to some of the experts to talk about the times these things have happened before. Because I know right now it looks as though with things descending into chaos, they may not pull out for particular parties, but some people do, in fact, know better. And one of the guys who knows the best of the better is Victor Davis Hanson. You know him, you love him, we all do. Sir, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to get to your latest book, The End of Everything, How Wars Descend into Annihilation. A nice, calm, soothing work, I'm sure. That's coming out on the 2nd. But before we get to that, I got to ask, the chaos, the cacophony of insanity up in Minneapolis, the screeching about land acknowledgements and trans this and Tim Walz yelling about red hats. I got to start to say I'm a little curious as to whether or not the Dems are going to be able to pull themselves together in time for the midterm. I mean, do you see them coalescing around anything at all between now and next November?
Well, they only have one unifying theme, and that is they all want to destroy and they hate Donald Trump. So sometimes they hit watermelons, sometimes they do the filibuster Cory Booker style, sometimes they make those obscene videos, sometimes they kind of go crazy, but otherwise they're not offering any counter agenda. They don't say, well, we would prefer this on the border and here's what we're going to do, or here's why we should return to the new Green Deal. They're on 30 to 40% of every issue. They don't own the House or the Senate or the White House or the Supreme Court. So they lost the popular vote and the Electoral College, first time since 2004. So I think they're very frustrated, and they've got this Jacobin radical base. And I'm not sure that's the right term for it anymore, base, because I think they've taken over the entire party, and that what you saw in Minneapolis, whether people like Chuck Schumer or Nancy Pelosi or Elizabeth Warren agree with that doesn't matter, because they condone it and promote it. And I guess, only 3 times in the last 100 years has the out party in the first term of administration not won House seats, and because it's so close, it doesn't mean they, even though they're polling as a party about 28%, they feel they can drive down Donald Trump's. I don't think the polls are that accurate. It's probably more like 50-50 rather than some of these crazy polls that have him down 10. But I think it's pretty close. But they feel that the more antics, the more hysteria that they can generate, it's kind of like collateral damage or a nuclear weapon. It just makes everything so chaotic that they can say, Trump made us like this. He brought out this. He's the disruptor. And you saw that with Tim Walz. Fallon, it doesn't make sense, but they just want to create a general atmosphere that things are chaotic, that there's no organization to anything, that we're in the middle of a tumult, and that they're going to stop that. And that's what they plan.
Are you familiar with the meme or the joke in which someone says, sir, this is a Wendy's?
Wendy's.
Hello, Wendy. This is Kevin's friend, Michael.
This isn't Wendy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you put her on, please?
Dude, this is a Wendy's restaurant.
Kevin. Okay.
I'm not sure I am, no.
Oh, yeah. So I see, Tim Walz, or I see, Senator Alex Padilla, or one of these, when it was Maxine Waters yelling outside the Department of Education. And I see them trying to push things into this mutually assured destruction, annihilation kind of stuff, but they're doing so in a way that is really awkward. Like the young lady that Elise filmed down at Union Station yelling to the police officer about her keffiyeh.
Appropriation by wearing a scarf that is trying to stop a genocide. You think that's appropriating a culture? Okay, in what way? How is that appropriating Palestinian culture?
And it just is awkward. We're starting to go back into that phase where just yelling out in the open carries with it a bit of shame, maybe not for the person that's doing the yelling, but for the rest of the country. I mean, that theoretically should hurt the voting turnout for that side of the aisle in 2026, but we're not really doing, in theory, traditional stuff anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have two views of it. Every data point is negative for them. They not only did not register as many, 2 million as the Republicans in additional registration, but they lost registration. They're bleeding about 5 million people a year leaving the blue states.
I was going to say, and that's just in the 30 states that record voter registration.
Yes. And in addition to that, if you look at the fertility rate long term, the top 10 red states are up to 1.8 to 2, and the bottom of the 50 states down to 1.3 and 1.4 are all blue states.
Who would have thought that telling hyper-depressive ladies that they shouldn't have children or they'll kill the planet might have consequences?
Yeah, that was a bad idea by AOC, but it kind of predated her. And so the long term is not good for them. And I think that is a lot of their hysterias. And they can't come out and say, this is what our agenda is, that 55% of the people want, because their base or this new young youth or whatever this group is, so they won't allow that. So I think their attitude is, I have to dissimulate. I have to be nominated. If I'm going to get a national candidate, he's got to get through the primaries. And to get through the primaries, he's got to be crazy. And then he has to have the gymnastics that he can change and go to the middle to win an election. And it didn't work with Kamala Harris. She tried that half-heartedly at times. But that's their problem.
Isn't it a little strange that the strategy of we have a California Democrat with a crazy social media strategy is now they're trying the exact same thing less than a year later they tried with Kamala. Now they're trying it with Gavin, as though that's going to rally the voters in Pennsylvania. And I mean, at this point, we talked about, you mentioned AOC, the only other contender like Wes Moore, maybe Pete Buttigieg. And did you see the poll suggesting, the Echelon poll, I believe, Pete Buttigieg's support in the black communities of this country is 0%.
Yes. He comes off as sanctimonious, self-righteous, sort of a elite scold. He has no charismatic appeal to anybody. And so he's not going to be a candidate. And Gavin Newsom's strategy, he thought, was to sound like the moderate candidate when he had Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon. And then he realized that he would never be nominated in this lunatic party.
Did he invite you on?
What?
Did Newsom invite you on his podcast?
No. I've been very critical of him. But so he's got this disaster in the Palisades where they haven't done anything. The whole thing was created by DEI people, going to Uganda, the public works people not having hydrants at work. A reservoir was empty. They wouldn't let people clear the brush. It was a self-created disaster, and it's even worse. They won't allow them. We've got the highest taxes in the country, highest gas taxes, highest number of poor people, highest percentage.
Come on.
Goes on.
You're saying this as though it wouldn't appeal to Pennsylvania union, coal miners or fuel refiners. Man, what an absolute surprise.
So I think their only strategy is just to create so much anger and hysteria and street theater about Trump that the people will say to themselves, well, I don't know who's right. But I just can't take it. It's I'm in a fetal position. I have my hands over my ears. Just make it all go away. And if Trump, maybe it didn't happen until Trump came. And their attitude is, well, it was legal to break the law and bring in 10 million. And that was an easy thing to do. But for Trump to enforce the law, that'll be amoral. And it's very difficult to find the people we let in. So we're going to stage these performance art protests against enforcing the law. And people with amnesia will not remember that we broke the law.
You say performance art as though this is kind of this is supposed to be some kind of a colloquial phrase to suggest, some type of protest where the heart isn't in it. It's just performative. No, they're actually doing real performance art. I don't know why. I've seen the same almost Barney Fife from the Andy Griffith Show church choir protest singing now for Kilmar Garcia, making up songs and singing out of tune.
I know. They all dress up in the same colors, or they bring a mariachi band. Or
we made this point yesterday. The high vision, the high vision reflective vest they were wearing.
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. No. Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. Heck no.
Didn't appear to be, they were bright pink, but they didn't appear to be the brand and thickness of construction workers, which means that the only other places that sell that kind of high vision, like vests like that, are companies that supply for
carnivals,
strippers,
parties or something like that. Yeah, strippers.
Come on. But I would be remiss because your expertise is in recognizing patterns throughout history. And this is one of the things that I was always fascinated with, seeing these same things play out again and again. When you have a group of people that are pushing for total chaos, they don't realize that they could be flirting with kind of the summative annihilation that does in fact accompany open chaos and war. And in the new book, The End of Everything, of course, there's a lot of places that we could go throughout history. You talk Carthage, Constantinople, the Mayans, talk about Thebes, but you do the classic Victor Davis Hanson thing by touching on all of those. Tell us about it.
Well, most wars don't end with annihilation. They either have a ceasefire or interrupted war until the next one, or a negotiated settlement of some kind, or unconditional surrender. We didn't even destroy Germany. I mean, we heard it, but we tried to rebuild it very quickly. Same with Japan. But there are times in history where the losers were annihilated, and I define that by losing their language, culture, and they disappeared as a people.
Erased from existence, to quote Doc Brown.
They did.
Erased from existence.
So I looked at 4 of them, classical Thebes that Alexander the Great destroyed, and there was no Thebes after. They rebuilt it, but they weren't rebuilt by Thebans.
Because there were no Thebans left to build it.
Not really, no. He killed all the adult males. He enslaved the rest, and then people in the surrounding area, 16 years later, they rebuilt the city and said they were Thebans. But the dialect, the history, the mythology, it was all gone. Same thing with Carthage. Scipio Aemilianus in the Third Punic War annihilated, destroyed it. I don't think he sowed the ground with salt. That was a medieval addition to the story. But there was no Carthaginian language or literature, and there had been after that. There was no... Constantinople was a little different in 1453. Mehmet, the Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, destroyed the city, but he kept a lot of the infrastructure intact, but he re-engineered the DNA. So he started to put minarets on the greatest cathedral in Christendom.
Like a cultural whitewash that leached more than it just... Well, again, when you say Carthage, a cultural salting of the earth instead.
Yes, exactly. And there was no Byzantine Empire after that in Asia Minor, and had been there for 3 millennia. And then Hernan Cortez destroyed between 1519 and 1521. Finally, he destroyed Tenochtitlan, which was the Aztec capital, and there is a Nahuatl language dispersed, but there is no Aztec culture anymore. There was no, the conquistadors destroyed the religion, the language, and created a mestizo replacement. But again, and then I was wondering, well, why were these things happening? And the answer is usually that these societies were in decline. They were not aware of it. They didn't understand the nature of their enemies. They didn't have any idea that the people outside the walls were intellectuals, oddly. Alexander the Great was a student of Aristotle. Scipio was a Scipionic circle. But they were also psychopath. They wanted to destroy them, and they were killers. They misinterpreted that, perhaps because, and probably because, they thought they were men that were enlightened and wouldn't do what everybody said they were going to do. They thought allies would come to their help.
And after all, every heart yearns for freedom and love and friendship and other nice, warm nonsense.
Yeah, Scipio convinced in negotiations, the Romans convinced the Carthaginians to give up their weapons and said that we'll treat you fairly. And then, of course, they besieged the city and destroyed it. But so there was a lot of naivete that people are going to come to help them, that the enemy wouldn't really do this, that we're stronger than we think. But there's not a rational, empirical assessment of who the enemy is, what they have done in the past, what they want to do to us, and what is our present state of readiness. And so it's very hard for kind of the British, for example, they ran the world until 1900, basically, and it's very hard for them not to see themselves still as a major world power. But when you look at the British military or British financial conditions or the internal disruptions of immigration and things in Britain, it's not. And it's a very vulnerable society. I don't think anybody realizes that it's sometimes on the verge of total chaos because we never associate Britain. Same thing with Germany. Germany has been such a power, even though it's been defeated. But it voluntarily destroyed its energy sector. It's got the most expensive energy in the Western world. 16% of the population is foreign-born and not assimilated. It has no military to speak of. So there isn't really, and it was the powerhouse of the EU. Now it's one of the weakest GDPs, and it's all, as in all these cases I mentioned in the past, it was sort of suicidal. They just run on the fumes of past glory, and they don't look at what's happened to them and what needs to be done, as if the remedy or the medicine's worse than the disease.
Well, it's a kind of suicide that isn't just living off of past glories, but being ashamed for them. I mean, as Gorbachev later indicated, that one of the greatest successes of the Soviet Union was to try to convince Americans and Western civilization as a whole, including the Brits and to a lesser extent the Germans, although of course denazification accomplished a lot of this in many ways rightfully so. But with the Brits, the idea that imperialism and colonialism were not just that they were a gross evil, gross in the economic and the counting sense, that every action of imperialism or colonialism or the spreading of culture or civilization or victory was so inhumane and evil that the very fabric of that society deserved to erode and to wash away. And well, when the American system started treating every lesson about Columbus as an opportunity to rail against the evils of civilization, I mean, of course, now the biggest debate, whether you're talking about Canada or the UK, is it going to be the neo-caliphate, or is it going to be the Indian anarchy that ends up taking over the country? It's a wild debate to have.
Yeah, it is. And I don't think people realize that all civilizations have a degree of fragility. And if you don't believe that your civilization is preeminent, or at least better than the alternative, then history sort of says there's no reason for you to continue.
Oh, and the more layers of complexity you add on top of it, the more fragile it gets from a technological standpoint. But alas,
it is.
I would love to chat with you for an hour. We'll have to schedule something in the future. You guys are definitely going to want to check out The End of Everything, because unlike a lot of political theory and analysis throughout the histories that are more, let's say, anecdote and here's my story, like Kamala Harris, 107 days, whatever, this one actually is good.
Thank you.
So that said, Dr. Victor Davis Hanson, always a pleasure to have you on, sir.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be back in a second. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
A little bit of bonus tonus for you this evening. Good to have you. We have got a little bit more to dig into, including what is, no other way to say it, a gift. A gift from the legacy media. The CNN analysis on the Lisa Cook situation. Now, the Lisa Cook situation, what am I talking about? Well, we head over to the 7th cabinet meeting at the Trump White House today, in which our own Elizabeth Mitchell asked President Trump about Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve Board governor, who is accused of committing mortgage fraud. And then, of course, Trump asked for her resignation. So we're going to look at that real quick here. The President of the United States.
Who are you considering for the replacement to nominate for Lisa Cook, and what economic background or history are you?
Well, we have some very good people for that position, and I think we have some very good people. We're down to, I think I maybe in my own mind have somebody that I like, but I deal with Scott and I deal with Howard, and we're dealing with a lot of people actually that are going to be involved in that decision ultimately. It's a very important decision. As we see, I got a bad recommendation when I went with Jerome Too Late. He's too late. His nickname is Too Late. Costing us Trump a lot of money, hurting the housing. Our housing industry is good, but it could be phenomenal. Most of this country, in economic terms, has been phenomenal. We've never seen anything like it. Because of him and his high interest rates, the housing is less than it could be.
Now, I do want to point out that the Trump goes on to basically say they have somebody in mind. They might move someone from one thing they're thinking about to another thing, which I've got a strong hunch that I know who the guy might be. And we're going to try to get him on the show. But in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about Lisa Cook. So Lisa, she may have committed some serious mortgage fraud. Now, people have pointed out how terrible it is. Jasmine Crockett was among the left, saying, for the first time in 111 years, a president is planning to fire a sitting Federal Reserve governor. And of course, it's the first black woman, Lisa Cook. Trump's message is clear. When black women rise, he'll do anything to push us down. Newsflash, we're not going anywhere, which is incredible to be tweeted by the hand of Representative Jasmine Crockett, whose congressional seat has just been taken away from her. So incredible. Only Jasmine Crockett, ladies and gentlemen. So moving aside from that, though, now is this particular individual a paragon of beauty and wisdom and impartiality? Because that's what everyone's claiming. Lisa Cook is apparently supposed to be just as pure as the driven snow. Well, Greg Price did put forward this video of Lisa in 2020, and well,
we have seen this before. And that's why my European friends told me before Trump was elected not to make fun of what was happening, to take very seriously what was happening, because they've had recent skirmishes with fascism. They know
recent skirmishes, like Italy electing Giorgia Meloni. That's who she's talking about. Their recent skirmishes with fascism. No, honey, no.
The impact of fascism, and this guy is definitely a fascist and embraces that.
Okay, thanks. That's real wonderful. Now, this is the part that I was really looking forward to sharing with you guys. This is from CNN. Some things in life are, in fact, a treat. So according to CNN this evening, a CNN review of mortgage documents shows that Cook took out mortgages for 2 properties, both of which were listed as her principal residence. Boys and girls, that is the legal definition for mortgage fraud. If you, and by the way, these documents are within weeks of each other. So it would be as though I, on one document said, hey, my primary residence is in Washington, D.C. Let's say if I'm registering to vote, perhaps. Oh, wait, she took out mortgages for 2 different properties. Oh, boy. So I'm taking out a mortgage for one property in Indiana. I say my primary residence is in Indiana. And then I'm going to take out a residence for a place in New York. And then on that document, I say, oh, by the way, my primary residence is in New York. Here's the part that is truly incredible. CNN says, however, it's not known why she did so or if she did so intentionally. This is one of the best weeks to be in the media game whatsoever. And thanks to Moni TV over on YouTube for the super chat, and appreciate you thinking we're doing great work. CNN makes it easy. Again, you have to write down. This is not something that you can accidentally get wrong. If you were asked, what is your primary residence? Again, I will remind you, boys, girls, and squirrels, if you make a mistake on your taxes like this, enjoy the decades of back taxes in prison. But when these large goofballs in the political and the finance games do it, well, for a long time you looked the other way. And now the Trump administration has come in and they're saying, all right, everyone's going to play by the exact same rules. When Letitia James said, we're going to go after Trump for the weirdest minutia, even when there's no victim, even when there are no damages, we're going to force Trump to the table over this awkward federal nonsense that, again, we have to choose people involved in the case very carefully because they're pointing out that Trump really shouldn't be in the crosshairs for this. And now here we are on the other side of it. And it turns out when the shoe is on the other foot, it doesn't fit quite as well. Now, there are a few things that I wanted to point out. Why is the rest of the country not taking legacy media like CNN, for example, or CBS very seriously? CBS released this clip today. Like today, they released this clip with their own, very proud announcement. This was about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, the Kansas City Chiefs, getting engaged. Everyone on social media made a bunch of hay about this because it matters to a lot of people. CBS believed this matters so much that they posted this video. I'm astounded. Again, professional news organization. Moments before she goes on air, here's Olivia Rinaldi of CBS News.
Taylor Swift is engaged. Taylor Swift is engaged. Taylor Swift is engaged. This, come back to me. She just posted it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh, it's huge. The ring is ginormous. This is so exciting.
I would hope so. He's very wealthy.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, it's on her Instagram. It's on her Instagram. It's on her Instagram. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I feel like Paul Revere right now.
Ah, yes. I feel like Paul Revere right now. Clearly. Ah, yes, you remember. The British are coming. Taylor Swift is getting banged with a ring on her finger. Quick, alert the town. Oh, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care. Well, you just played the clip. Yes, because the media is the silliest group of organizations known to mankind. If you believe that it is huge, major, incredible news that two people got hitched, I really don't know what to tell you. Oh, but they just really admire her. Yeah, there's lots of people that I admire. A lot of them. I just interviewed one of them. I did not ask Victor Davis Hanson about when he got engaged. The level of social media obsession with the most mediocre, lukewarm, repeating chord artist almost of all time. I gotta say, just personally, this is just me. This is just me. I don't know if I would have, handed a ring to a lady who's made her entire career on singing about men on albums that she has found inadequate, and also about her own, mental illnesses. To be fair, because we will point this out as well, because there are some of our friends and colleagues who do care and things. White House correspondent for the Daily Caller, Reagan Reese, asked Trump what he thought about it, and he said, "I wish him well," and then complimented both Travis Kelce, saying he's a good dude, and said that he thought that Taylor Swift was, a talented or good person or whatever. So much for that media firestorm that was supposed to happen and be really terrible. In the meantime, there are individuals on the legacy media crew who have decided to stick their heads up their own butts and then do makeup and go on air. One of these, of course, is Jeffrey Toobin on CNN, known for watching porn while in Zoom calls with the rest of the company. So Jeffrey Toobin, he has some announcements about Trump's political Department of Justice strategy that are just precious.
Unprecedented is all of this?
Well, this crusade, a criminal crusade against political adversaries is completely unprecedented in...
It's unprecedented, guys. We've never seen it before. You can believe that the sitting administration authorized an FBI raid on a political opponent's house? Oh no, I've never seen something like that. What are they going to do next? Try him in New York for 32 felonies at a federal level down at the state? Oh, wow. Gee willikers. Man, maybe you can have an obese woman from Georgia who is shagging the prosecutor on the side try him under RICO. Something really unprecedented. Incredible. I love it. No one understands. Why are they not being taken seriously? Now, there are a couple of Democrats who are aware of the way the winds are blowing. So you can say what you would like about the stupidity that she often shows, saying that black children don't even know what the word computer is. New York Governor Kathy Hochul does in fact recognize, perhaps a smidge, that Democrat judges releasing criminals back out onto the streets is a one-way ticket to get the National Guard rolling through your town. And she's a little bit worried that, people might like it because she had to put the National Guard in New York City. And, oh, wait a minute. Kathy Hochul realizing the winds are changing.
Eligible, but guess what? The judge decided to do something differently than what the prosecutors had asked for rightfully under the law. So I think the question I have is, come on, judges, you're doing your part here. I need the judges to step up. And I've been surprised at the number of judges who don't seem to know the law has changed.
Whoa! Man, I can't believe all of these judges that were put in office by the campaign funds of George Soros, who I can't believe these Democrats are acting like Democrats. It's like going to Chicago and saying, wow, this election was really corrupt and there's a lot of murder on the South Side. How could that be? Don't they know the law says differently? Incredible stuff. Way to go on. Way to go on you, Kathy Hochul. You're a little bit slow to the table. Dinner's over. We're on like breakfast 3 days from then now, but we're glad that you've joined us finally. Thank you. On a different note, I do want to point out Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of Commerce. He was asked today about the Trump administration's choice to get 10% of the stock of Intel. And it's been compared to socialism. And his response is rather curious. So I'm going to point this out as well because whenever Peter Navarro and then occasionally Howard Lutnick has it right, this time, nah.
Right? The Biden administration had given $11 billion to Intel, given it to them.
That's not entirely true. The given is not quite correct here, but for the sake of the argument, we'll let them have it.
Done. Corporate just gift. And you turn that into really, it was like less than 5 minutes of conversation. And Intel agreed to give us 10% of their company, which of course was worth $11 billion. So,
okay. The Department of Commerce valuing companies, kind of concerning, did in fact lead to the fall of the East India Trading Company. Another topic for another time. Also, Intel did not just out of the kindness of their heart give the U.S. Department of Commerce or the U.S. Department of Defense anything. So, not quite.
It's not socialism. This is capitalism. If you give someone $11 billion who's just building in America, they're not doing something special. They're building in America.
Correct. They're not doing something special. So why does the U.S. government need 10% of their stock? Now, I will jump in here and say, I agree with him. It's not socialism. And I there have been a lot of people saying, oh, it's just socialism. No, I don't think so. This is crony corporatism, like Norway has. This is crony corporatism. This is where the government, by means of leveraging small parts of the business, then down the road, they do end up, and even though right now the Trump administration says we're never going to ask anything of Intel, we're not telling them what to do, we're just, as Intel grows, see the American taxpayers are now getting a little of it back. Nope. The government sucks at making financial decisions. It is what they are known for. I don't want the United States to have stake in, of the big three, AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel. I don't want them to have stake in the worst of the three, whose processors have so many malfunctions and issues. Oh, you think government money is going to solve that? No. I don't like it. And so no, I agree with him. I don't think it's socialism. I think that's getting a little overboard there. But it is kind of crony corporatism. The same kind of crony corporatism that helps individuals like Nancy Pelosi, that Bernie Sanders is praising. Now, as to the argument on like a sovereign wealth fund, we can have a conversation about certain defense industries. And if it turns out that the Intel shares agreement is a major national security asset, like agreement kind of a thing, I will gladly come back and say this was a good move, but only for a direct national security purpose. I'm just not seeing that here, though. I'm just not seeing it. The argument that is being made is a bad one. Sorry, I can't. I mean, again, I think that Howard Lutnick is doing some really good things in commerce right now, going through and cleaning out certain political members in NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, which we reported on. Excellent stuff. But this particular thing, no, that's Peter Navarro reasoning. That's smack yourself in the head with a hammer kind of reasoning. Lastly, but not leastly, I've been waiting to share this with you guys all day. The Democrats are clinging to crime, but they're clinging to one other thing as well. This is also what's going to sink Gavin Newsom, by the way, just in case you're wondering. This is the argument that illegal immigration is a very, 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 very good thing. And now you have a couple of red states emboldened by the Trump administration, like Florida, who are setting up checkpoints at way stations on the interstates, and they are examining truck drivers' identification as they go through the way stations, and they are arresting illegal immigrants who should not be on the roads because many of them do not speak English, whether they come from Central America, whether they come from Central Asia, whether they come from some parts of Eastern Europe. Doesn't matter. Whether they are white, brown, a different shade of brown, black, goldenrod, chartreuse, doesn't matter. They're checking documents and they're detaining illegal immigrants. And there is a case in which right now, Attorney General James Uthmeier of Florida said last night the Bay County Sheriff's Office arrested an illegal alien who was driving a commercial vehicle with a New Jersey driver's license that is not valid in Florida. Roberto Carlos Vergara Cervantes from Ecuador, do you like that, is now on an ICE hold and he will be deported. And this upset not only those on the left, but it also upset the Cato libertarians. Oh, why are the Cato libertarians upset? According to David Beer, all states must recognize driver's licenses issued by other states. These nativists are intent on dissolving the Union and violating the Constitution. All right, we're gonna break this one down here real nice and quick for you. First of all, it's hilarious to watch a self-ascribed libertarian suggesting that how dare states not endorse and enforce other states' laws. No, that's an anti-libertarian position. Number two, this does not violate the Constitution. If California enacts a law that says men are to wear skirts, and then the guy from California comes to Indiana and does not wear a skirt, it is not the job of the state of Indiana to enforce a law from California. One of the reasons I'm living in the greatest state in this country, Indiana, God bless the greater Hoosier Republic, is so I do not have to live in the hellscape of California. Kind of one of the big things that we're really on about here. Again, Indiana, not California. So the issue that I have, at least on my side of things, for the libertarian argument, number two, I'm sorry, there is no constitutional verification on driver's licenses being something that states can offer and other states have to offer them or honor them as well. No. A lot of states do, but there are a ton of state statutes that other states do not honor all the time, everywhere. And last but not least, there's this argument to be made that, well, you know, it may be bad, but it's not immoral, because I made the case it's immoral. It is immoral to give an illegal immigrant a driver's license. And the question that was asked is why? If someone who is here does not speak the English language, does not read and write the English language, and does not know the rules of the road, we already have sufficient specific evidences. Yet another case on I-55 today, I believe out near Missouri, of an individual in a semi-truck from Raj Enterprises driving down the wrong side of the road at 60 miles an hour in a semi on a bridge. If you do not know the rules of the road, if you are an illegal immigrant, or you're a legal immigrant and you don't know the rules of the road, you can't pass all of the tests, you should not be on the roads. You don't deserve a commercial driver's license. You don't need a CDL. You're not entitled to one because you'll work for cheap. And I just so happen to know semi-trucks, 18-wheelers, they're kind of dangerous. They're big. They're heavy. They move with momentum on the road. They cause a lot of accidents. They're the subject of a lot of accidents. A lot of dumb people brake check semis and cause a lot of accidents. They're dangerous, especially operated by someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Guess what? Good odds that a lot of people on this show or that watch this show or tune into the show who work on construction sites would probably have a problem if I just decided I was going to stroll by one day and operate the backhoe. I'm not qualified to do so. That's not something you might trust me with. And it is not incumbent on Florida, just because some idiots in New Jersey pass a law to give illegals CDLs, does not mean that Florida has to honor it. No. And as long as the Democrats and again, you and I both know the Libertarian Party is completely irrelevant. Any serious libertarian is a Republican. Every other libertarian is arguing about why both sides are equally bad at their conventions where they're disputing whether or not there should be a legal age of consent. So, again, of course, this would come from Cato. Nonsense. No one takes him seriously anymore. All right, those things said, it's been a fun show this evening. A lot of great stuff. We'll be back here tomorrow. Same great time, same great place. Subscribe to the Daily Signal over on YouTube if you haven't. It really helps us out. And given the amount of flack we've been taking recently from legacy media because we just keep on growing despite their best efforts, you're going to want to stick around for some more. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signal's Tony Kinnett Cast here on our YouTube, X, and Rumble, nationally syndicated first out of 93 WIBC. Have an excellent evening, and of course, take care.